And I wanted to focus many aspects of our long-term research with several species, humpback, blue whale, and gray whale, rely heavily not only on collaboration among scientists, but also contributions coming both from scientists, naturalists, and members of the public with whale watching. I was going to pick a few of the elements and a few of the projects that have benefited from that and represent examples of that. For example, the Splash project that Dave was involved with, a number of other people in this room were involved with, is probably the largest collaboration of scientists to study. Of scientists studying the whale species that involved over 400 researchers and 50 research groups focusing on humpback whales across the North Pacific. And for that, we had to deal with a number of challenges of how to manage that and benefits. But also our West Coast research with humpback whales in this region alone has increasingly become dependent on contributions coming from not our dedicated surveys, but from a network of researchers, naturalists that go out on whale watch boats or on their own boats, and then members of the public that are out on whale watch boats. And there are a couple of really good examples. The most successful has been in the Channel Islands. The Channel Islands Naturalist Corps represents a trained group. I come down every year and do just a one-day training, but it's managed by the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. There's a trained group of photo ID people that go out and on whale watch boats and this may be a good chance to give a presentation without slides. That go out on whale watch boats and collect photographs and compile that all, and it gets sent to us. So that's been quite successful. The number of identifications we get is now in the several hundred every season come to us by that means. I'll address a couple of the challenges that I think there was a good reference that Dave made at the beginning. I think especially members of the public tend to think that it's natural for scientists to collaborate and don't realize that many of the external pressures that scientists face, whether it's competition for funding, getting acknowledged through first publication, all are competitive forces that scientists are working under. And you add into that egos and other things, and you really have a lot of forces that potentially are forces against collaboration among researchers. So how to properly acknowledge and credit researchers for the data they gathered, what Dave referred to as safeguarding their data. It's best to address those up front. And in Splash, the main way we tried to deal with those is by trying to point out, A, that there were certain benefits that would come out of collaboration that were not possible if we didn't collaborate. And then secondly, make sure what we did didn't threaten any of the individuals' objectives that they had with their own data. And so that meant that you still assured that researchers had access and could publish their own data just as they would have if there wasn't a collaboration, and the collaboration would result in something beneficial in addition that they wouldn't have been able to do on their own. And I think that was a successful formula for us in dealing with collaborating. There were a couple of things Bernardo brought up in kind of dealing with citizen scientists and where you're not dealing with necessarily other researchers. And I think there definitely are issues of data quality you have to be concerned with and deal with up front. We get a lot of sighting information from the public at Cascadia Research, and it can be very tricky to sort out accuracy of sightings. That can be very difficult because often someone will see something, they'll read in a book the description of what they thought they saw, and then some of the details of what they saw and what they're reading about in the ID guide start to meld together. So often you can get this fairly accurate description that meets all the criteria, and you go out and you verify that it really is something completely different. And the only way, and then you talk to them, and usually the thread is they saw something, they read about what they thought it was, and then they kind of filled in the gaps in what they saw with what they read about. So you can get these incredible sounding sightings that are wrong. And on the same token, you can get surprising. In Puget Sound, for example, we don't get sea otters, and we get hundreds of reports of river otters that people report as sea otters. And then one year, 2 sea otters came down, and the first 5 calls you got, another person thinking they're seeing a sea otter, and then no, and they had it right, and you had it wrong. So it can be tough separating that. But again, knowing the right questions to ask and training, and certainly the advent of digital cameras and other means has been a great asset to that. One of the challenges in the splash collection, and I think maybe I'll just save this if there's time in the discussion, we have been working with Pacific Life, so it's been very relevant trying to look at how to take a large catalog and data set like the Splash catalog and make it accessible. Splash was committed to the idea that that data in the long term would be available to other researchers and the public. And so here the large size of both the data set and the catalog made it both an incredible asset, but also made it a challenge to how to not only make that accessible, but in a way that was useful to people. The catalog of Splash photographs, if you sum the IDs across years, you end up with something around 5,000 different individuals. So unlike a catalog of a few hundred or something, you're dealing with that many individuals that have to be sorted through. So we think we've done a good job. Later this month, we will be launching. It's available now, and you can look at it, but we're going to officially launch it, the Splash data set and catalog. One of the interesting discussions we've had with Pacific Life, they really wanted to see that be an active tool going into the future. So one of the things we've added, we've taken all the Splash data set, but now we've added to it all our West Coast data that people are contributing is also going in there to show the sighting histories of the Splash animals, both in the past and up to the future. And we've added a means to try to have that be a tool for people to be able to enter photographs to us. That's still going to take a huge next step before that is a next step to I think really make that practical for the person with their photograph to quickly find a match among 5,000 images. I'm not trying to say that's easy. The improvement and development on automated matching software still needs to come a little bit further to make that practical, but it's providing some of the steps towards that, and I know there have been a number of efforts in this area that are happening, and other of these collective catalogs that are out there. I think Splash represents one of the most challenging because it was so big and large for doing that. And as I said, if we have a little more time, depending on where the discussion goes, and since you didn't get to see my presentation, I can show, we can just call up the website and I can give an example of navigating. Like, for example, we have a map. You can draw a box on the map and just take the area off Santa Monica where we are here. It will call up all the sightings in that area, and then you can select any individual that's been seen in that area, and it will show you the full sighting history of that animal. So you can very quickly go from a geographic area to what's been cited to their sighting history. And I think that's a key part of keeping people involved. And I'll give maybe, how am I doing on time, Dave?
0.
Huh?
0.
0, okay. I'll stop there, and in the discussion I'll mention there's a good example of how an organization in our area called Orca Network has also kind of promoted participation by the public in this, in kind of reporting sightings and data of animals.
Great, thank you, John.